Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl and welcome to Geneva. We're going to take a closer look at the brand new AMG GLE 53. Come with us. The first thing to mention about this car is it's not only the styling that's AMG, it's AMG through and through. That means new engine, gearbox, handling, chassis, suspension, the works. And that really does relate to how the car's obviously going to be driving. But there's no point buying one of these unless everyone can see it's an AMG right from a glance. And I think you'd have to agree, Mercedes have really made a pretty bold statement with the front of this vehicle. That big bold styling continues round here to the side. We have optional 20 to 22 inch wheels, so that's certainly making a statement within the framework of these massive wheel arches. Again, if you had to pick one word that summed up the side effect of this vehicle, it has to be massive. Coming around to the rear of the vehicle, and we have a lot more softness brought in here. Yeah, we still have that massive power suggested by these nice matching exhausts and this really nice air diffuser right on the bottom. So visually, we still have that clear emphasis of power within the design, but it's a lot more soft. We're allowed to look at these lovely round flanks as they merge into the side. And it generally says, okay, I know I was aggressive when I turned up, but maybe when I leave, I'm going to be a little bit more gentle. Well, that's until you've heard the throaty growl of the engine coming from underneath. Let's take a look and see what's powering this thing. Well, obviously, any AMG is going to be all about the engine, and this one is no exception. What you're looking at is a 6-cylinder, 3-litre, twin turbocharged, producing 435 horsepower and 520 newton meters of torque. But it doesn't stop there. It's got a 48-volt system, which is also providing an additional, or factored in, 250 newton meters of torque at go, and an extra little kick to your acceleration. That's going to give you a 0 to 100 speed of 5.3 seconds. All of that power is going to be delivered to your wheels by a 9-speed gearbox. And it has all-wheel drive that they say is infinitely variable, so the power exactly where you need it to be at every wheel that you could want it. Now, look at it. It's a beast. And you can see that an awful lot of design effort has gone into making this distinct from its less sporty brother, we should say. All of the components here are designed to increase stability, lightness, and extra chassis control. Let's take a look inside and see what AMG have done with the interior. Well, I think maybe it speaks to Mercedes' usual standards when I say that there's nothing here that amazes you. You expect high quality materials from Mercedes and a certain degree of finishing, and needless to say, that is exactly what you get when you open this door. There are many, many different combinations of materials to choose from when you go for this car. So if you see something and you think, I don't know if that's really me, all of this silver effect could be a little bit much for some people. Don't worry, there are lots of different options you can have. The controls are nicely set into the door. They're all kind of well laid out that you can pick what you want without touching it accidentally, and stylistically it all looks and works really nicely together. You feel an echoing of the roundness of the exterior on some of these interior buttons, but they're all very tactile. This being Geneva, we have the leather finishing on the seats, but for the first time in the top-end cars, you can now get this without a leather finish. A lot of people, but nobody, I think, more in the world than possibly Thomas himself, would be excited about that. So it's just nice to have that as an option for people who like to have the choice. Once you get into this car is when those AMG features really start to take effect on you as a driver. But before we get into that, just a couple of notes on the GLE design design itself. So as previous users will appreciate, all of the seat controls are inset into the door itself, and I find that really particularly convenient. If you have an unusual body shape as I do, it's really nice to be able to get exactly the seat control that you want without needing to grope around the side of the chair. It's just a touch that I particularly like. I'm 178 centimeters or 5'10" in height, and as you can see, even with this massive panoramic roof, I still have more than enough head height. Now, I would expect to be honest, in this car. So when we do have a little bit of a look at the lower section here, when we see all of the features that we can adjust, the sound, the dampers, the car ride height, the traction control, it's all AMG. The drive modes are specific and particular to AMG. So the idea behind the DNA of the car is that it will drive like a Mercedes, but not like a Mercedes. Now, if you want to know how on earth that makes any sense, if you've ever driven a regular Mercedes and then taken out its AMG brother, you'll know exactly what I mean. It's just a little bit of a different experience. More power, more performance, more handling, more aggression, but still that stylish subtlety that you expect from the drive of a Mercedes. Now, whether this car can deliver all of that without asking me 400 times how it can help, I don't know. I just told the car I didn't know. Please stop speaking.
Can you say that again, please?
Let's try it again. Please stop speaking. Okay, I think he got the message that time. Let's take a look at some of that styling detail in a little bit closer detail. Now again, if any of this is off-putting to you, please don't be put off by this specific choice of materials. There are lots of options. This wouldn't be my first pick. Always you make piano black. Why? Now, some of the manufacturers seem to have mastered some magic form of piano black that doesn't show fingerprints. I promise you that Mercedes are not one of those. If you have a look at that, this is not going to work for me. What is going to work for me is the effortless functionality of everything in this central console. In keeping with the styling and design of this car, we have a really rugged, solid feeling to this central console here, and practicality is everywhere. Coming through to the back, it's important that as much of that experience of comfort and quality is brought back here as possible. And I'm happy to see that we have the same attention paid not only to the quality of materials, but also to the usability of it. That is really nice and straightforward. I love it when rear seat passengers are treated as if they're not an afterthought, and you're not going to have that experience back here. Not only quality, but also thought and design. Look at these seats. They've been very nicely designed to offer the maximum amount of legroom possible to the rear seat passenger. There's a nice big carve taken out of the rear of this seat, which makes space, obviously, for the legs of the rear seat passenger. Now, don't be completely fooled. I just set the seat in front for me and I have very short legs, but as you can see, there is acres of space back here. So you've picked up your mother-in-law and her sister and you're going to transport them off to dinner somewhere fancy, but your mother-in-law's rugby gear is still making the rest of the car smell, so you need somewhere to put that. Where are we going to keep it? In the back. Well, I can tell you that I have been through copious pages of notes on this car, and nowhere have I been able to answer the question, how much room am I looking at? Well, you know how we work here at Autogefuel. We need to give you as much information as possible, and as I think by now you all know what size I am, you should be able to get a fairly decent impression of the available space back here. We folded the rear seats down so you can get a really good look at exactly how much room you have back here, and these are all nicely electric, so really zero effort to you to deal with whatsoever. This car has third row seating built into it. So it's conclusion time for the AMG GLE 53. What do we think? Well, I think it's very much a division based on personal taste. As far as the styling is concerned, there is no dispute whatsoever. This is an AMG, and depending if you like the way that the Mercedes design language has evolved, they say it's Bauhaus inspired. I don't know. That's not what I'm picking up, but still, maybe I could learn a little bit more about Bauhaus. I think is going to dictate how you feel about the visual presence of this car. It is very commanding. But the integration of technology into the car is fantastic. This particular choice of interior styling wouldn't be my first pick, but I really like the way that the styling has been used to pick up on the accents of AMG, to integrate the technology that AMG brings to that design, and to make you feel like you are king of the road. That is, after all, the experience you should have with this car. If you don't get that when you sit in one of these, you should sit in a different one and see how you feel then. So I think there's a lot to like here. Obviously, the proof of the pudding is going to be in the drive. When we come to this technology, you really have to ask yourself how much you're prepared to spend. We don't have pricing for this vehicle at the moment, but I can promise you it isn't going to be cheap. And if you're looking at comparable performance in a car for an awful lot less, there is a lot in the market to choose from. So really what you're talking about is the total package. And with an AMG GLE, that's all about your ability to drive in great comfort, also very aggressively and at good amounts of speed. So if you have the capacity to do that where you live, oh my goodness, you're going to get rewarded by this car. But I think if you live in a city like Paris or London, you probably need to ask yourself if you really do need the AMG version. But at least everyone you know will know that you bought the AMG version. So if that's important to you, it's certainly going to pay off in dividends.